Hey, it's always a good sign when people turn up. And there we go. There's people coming into the room. So welcome along to this week's webinARC, Series 3, Episode 8. Great session lined up today. We're taking it back to the repairers, handing over the reins to Darren and Micah today, who will give us a great insight into what's happening in that environment at the moment, specific to their respective businesses. So we will just allow everyone to join and settle in. By all means, again, hopefully by now you're familiar with all of this, but the Zoom platform, drop us a note in the chat. Let us know you're there. Give us a wave, thumbs up, whatever it might be. It's always good when you're sat on this side to know that people are engaged. Again, lovely to hear any thoughts as we go throughout the chat. You know, it's not just here for Darren and Micah to tell you what's happening in the world, but if anyone's got any thoughts out there, wants to join in the conversation, questions can be fired into the Q&A and or chat. Just drop us a note or two in there. So on the main screen, you can see video roll right now, and we'll get to our corporate partners and partners in a second. But as I say, for today, Darren Wills, Executive Director at Motofix Accident Repair Centres, and Micah Sherwood, Bodyshop Manager, English Ford, Foray Motor Group. All right, so first and foremost, the disclaimer. So the views and opinions expressed during the following webinar are those of the individual contributors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the contributor's employer, organisation, committee, or other group or individual. Please respect any all contributions, and we encourage you to join the conversation via the interactive functions available. So huge thank you, as always, to our corporate partners, BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, Emacs, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Innovation Group, Micah, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners, Aztec, the Green Part Specialists in DARSA and Prasco UK. So we're just going to skip through before we jump across to the speakers. So the market intelligence document, which we issue to align with every time we broadcast a webinar. And today, or yesterday's information, if you like, is all very positive. So Apple Mobility Trends report, you can see driving is up 37% on that baseline that they have there, and you can see the respective dates along the bottom. Good signs there. The Google COVID mobility report, and again, we use Greater London and Greater Manchester. That's just where we've been. You can see things moving in the right direction, public transport, increase, or if you like, decrease percentage wise. So more people out and about, and also workplaces, those requests there also on the up. Same thing with Greater Manchester. We're seeing very similar trends. This is the real interesting piece, and I was just saying to the guys before we came on air, the TomTom Live Traffic Bristol as we use, and we've really started to notice now the traffic peaks and troughs. So those rush hours are clearly evident there in the charts, and you can see that across every day of the week effectively, and obviously big, lots of travelling taking place at the weekends still. Same thing with the Birmingham Wolverhampton, those peaks and troughs, rush hour traffic, if you like, is certainly back, and again we will be keeping tabs on that as we go. So let's skip across and say hello to people. So Micah, I'll come to you first if I may. How are you doing?
Hi Mark, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you, and thank you so much for joining us. So you know, for anyone out there, can you just give us a little insight into English Ford and the Foray Motor Group?
Yes, I can. So I come back, well, I started here back in May. We are part or attached to a Ford dealership. English is actually one of 5 of the Foray Bodyshop sites. So yes, that's a bit about English Ford.
Great stuff, thank you very much. And you're relatively new to the role, aren't you, having previously been in the industry?
Yeah, definitely. It does feel like I've been here forever though. I've been in the industry about 10 or so years, but I do feel like I've actually been here forever, which I think is a good thing.
We'll take that as a good sign, definitely, definitely. And Darren, part of the Motofix group now. So how's it going for yourself?
Yeah, very well, thanks. A bit like Misha, a newbie to the group, although I've only been here for 8 weeks. 9 years on this side of the sector before sort of jumping over the fence from the insurer side. So as many of you probably know, Motofix, 8 sites, and we support a variety of customers, from insurers to asset management organisations. And I guess what attracted me to join the group was its sort of focus on people and process. Really, really strong in both of those areas. So yeah, thoroughly enjoying it so far. But I have to say that in case Richard's watching.
It's okay, your secret's safe with us. You can say what you like today. So thank you very much, guys. And again, looking at it from your perspectives, I think is a great thing. Very, very different businesses, if you like. So you will certainly have your own views on what's happening out there. And as I say, anyone listening in, by all means, share your thoughts. So we're talking about an awful lot in the industry right now, and there's some really kind of, big, heavy subjects knocking around, volumes of which is obviously a key part of it. We're talking electric vehicles, we're talking human resource, and we're starting to talk about, ESG, environmental kind of issues and things going on now as well. So all really, really important. But in the day-to-day, is there kind of any one thing, given the type of business that you are, that is kind of, really absorbing your focus and or you're giving your utmost attention to as we kind of sit here, right at this very moment? Misha, if I come to you on that one, if I may.
Yeah, of course. I would say at the moment it's for staff and the staff retention. We're finding that, I don't know if this is post-COVID or whether this is just the norm. I've been sort of absent from the industry for a couple of years, so I am still sort of remembering how things were or what it is like now. But recently we're finding that a lot of our staff are attempting to be poached from competitors, and it's not being done in the most, let's probably say, respectful way. But it's trying to keep that sustainable as well. We're finding that staff are getting offered an awful lot of money, sort of best part of £20 an hour, an awful lot. Something a figure that's not really sustainable, and it's not just damaging to us. The staff don't want to go anywhere because we do offer more than just the money there, but it's not really sustainable for the industry. So I think that's really taken a lot of my focus at the moment is what sort of other people are doing to other businesses, I guess. So when they're trying to take the staff, it's a bit worrying because it's not something that they can maintain.
No, absolutely. And, anecdotally had a chat with somebody in the repairer world only the other day, actually, who was, regaling the very same kind of challenges. So, Darren, from where you sit, similar issues, anything else kind of really, attracting your attention right now?
Yeah, I agree with Misha. People, I think, is a big challenge across the sector as a whole at the moment. And I think increasingly the challenge around people are spreading as well. So I think that, the clamour for good technicians has been in the market for a number of years, and we all know that. But I think particularly coming out of COVID in the last sort of 6 months or so, we started to see that pressure both to recruit and retain in sectors within sites that we haven't seen before. So, for example, drivers, well publicised across the whole of the country that we've got a shortage of both HGV and delivery drivers. And that's pushing the cost of those individuals' salaries up and becoming a real challenge to recruit there. And I think, just building on the point Misha raised, I think we're also seeing an increasing trend towards people wanting to work more flexibly. I think a lot of people learned that there was a different way of working through COVID, and we're starting to see an increasing number of requests from people who want to work flexible hours or different days and stuff like that. So yeah, just staying on our toes around the people area is a big ongoing challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's again, pertinent, ongoing part of the conversation I think we've had throughout is what will it be like returning, so to speak. And it's clear, it's a competitive marketplace out there for good technicians. So I suppose the key question is how do you tackle that from within? And it's almost part of that bigger what underpins your business in terms of kind of future-proofing it with that element in mind? Darren, I'll come back to you if I may.
Yeah, I don't think there's any one thing, Mark. I personally, I think the idea of sort of any business being future-proof is a bit of a misnomer. You know, if we look at what's happened over the last 18 to 24 months, yeah, none of us would have predicted that. But you know, at the end of the day, we've all got businesses that are, you know, run by, led by, contributed to by people, and so you know, making sure we keep people on board is, you know, I think is absolutely key. And then combining that with having, you know, a view to what the future might look like and sort of planning to step towards it, but also at the same time being nimble. You know, and I think, you know, the whole sector, you know, the way it reacted to COVID in its own different ways in different groups and stuff like that, yeah, it just demonstrates that, you know, to have an ongoing sustainable business, you know, you need to be able to roll with the punches. So yes, have a plan, but also be nimble enough to be able to change that plan at fairly short notice if you need to, if circumstances dictate.
Yeah, absolutely. And Misha, I suppose, you know, from where you sit in terms of your specific business model, again, it has its own challenges in that sense, I'm sure.
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities to what Darren said. You know, dare I say the C word, but you know, they talk about the variants, they talk about this, we're coming into winter, and you do have to chop and change all the time how you're reacting to those situations. So it can be quite difficult to, how do we future-proof? So for us, we're heavily focusing on training and apprentices. We've got minimum of 2 at each site at the moment. Still got vacancies, still something we're really heavily pushing. As I'm sure everyone will agree, they are what hopefully will be the future of the industry. So we need to start there. So that's where most of our focus is going.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And sustainable enough in the meantime? It's, you know, that's a broad question, obviously, but you know, we have, I think we've sort of spoken about this, the gap, if you like. We seem to be very focused on apprentices and doing quite well there at the moment. Still a lot of work to be done. Have we got enough kind of people, do you think, to fill in that interim, if you like? Is there enough resource in the industry or outside the industry that we can draw upon? Any thoughts there, Darren?
I think it's a really good point, Mark. You know, I'd echo Misha's comments around, you know, we all know that you know, one of the futures of the industry is definitely in apprentices, but managing them in a business comes with an ongoing cost. You know, they may at the outset be a slightly cheaper labour resource, but you know, there's a cost to manage them within a business. And I think we're increasingly finding as well that there's an ongoing challenge in finding the right mentors to work alongside those apprentices as well. And you know, making sure that we can put an apprentice alongside somebody that's going to give them the time and the insight that, you know, they really need to turn them into a fully effective member of the team over the course of their training. And I think, you know, I think it is an area in which potentially some of the larger insurers or maybe larger work providers could potentially contribute and get together in terms of, you know, funding. You know, it's probably an area in which, instead of, you know, individual sites or individual body shop groups doing their own thing, maybe there's a way in which we could collaborate a little bit more to you know, share training resource or share some of the costs and funding perhaps. Yeah,
absolutely. And you know, the likes of obviously Foray are out there, well-known school of thought as well, doing their sort of things. So you know, there is certainly a movement towards that, and I think, you know, all of these things are great contributors to the industry. So I suppose rewind a little bit. Let's kind of move on from the human resource, or potentially we won't, but across the broader industry then. What is there anything specifically changing in kind of the management or handling of accident damaged vehicles? You know, are we talking about different things now? We're hearing sort of, you know, parts challenges potentially. You know, all these kind of things are coming into the mix and adding their own layer of complexity, if you like. So is there anything, you know, new conversations being had about different areas that perhaps weren't being had previously? Misha?
I've struggled with this one a little bit. I've given this one a lot of thought. And and I'll be very careful how I word this because I'm very conscious that I can say things that come across the wrong way. But something I noticed, or wouldn't say I was involved in, but I was kind of indirectly involved in to some extent. I mean, I've been absent for a couple of years and I've come back and I've definitely seen it increase, is maybe money making, or dare I say it, greed of the middleman. It causes all sorts of problems. But I think, as much as I want to elaborate on that, I don't want to anything to come across the wrong way. But that's something that I'm very aware of. And I think
okay.
other repairs would probably agree with that as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Absolutely. And Darren, anything from your side, kind of, you know, adding to the mix?
Yeah, I mean, I think picking up on Misha's point there, and I'll expand a little bit more because I'm closer to retirement than she is, quite clearly. So I think one of the things I've seen over the last sort of year or so, and starting to come back into the fray now as well, it is the number of, be it work providers, accident management organisations, that are starting to step into the supply chain of body shops. So whether that's, you know, more around part supply, paint supply, whatever it might be. I think the challenge there is kind of twofold from my perspective. You know, I think the idea of exploring new and emerging remuneration models in the market is really sensible. You know, there's potentially, you know, scope in that space. I think the challenge with most of the proposals that are on the table at the moment, though, is that they look to upstream what is a fairly thin profit margin away from the body shop sector at the moment. And you know, I think we're certainly seeing challenges around, you know, not wanting to seem to be Luddites and not embrace change, but at the same time, you know, and I've only had my body shop violin for 9 years, and I had 20 years on the other side of the fence before I picked this one up. But you know, as we know, you know, it's a sector that runs on very thin margins, and therefore, you know, sharing those margins out when they're small in the first place is a bit of a challenge. So, you know, I welcome the idea of new ideas, but I think they need to be sensibly commercial at the same time.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Darren, for doing that.
I'll get my phone.
You raise the ideas and Darren will just expand upon them. So with that, and this kind of leads nicely into the next question, I suppose, is it still a volume game, or we've spoken about it kind of ongoing? Are we looking more now at kind of a specialist niche segmented market where maybe I will only cater for a certain partner, be it a brand, be it a work partner? You know, how do you think that's panning out then from that perspective? Misha, I'll come back to you.
I think there's a lot of talk, and you'll see it everywhere, about electric vehicles is the way forward. So it would probably be sensible to make the assumption that a lot of people will probably be going down the route of like the electric vehicles, and also the manufacturer approval. You know, but in the same breath, have we learnt from previous? So, you know, for X amount of years, everyone thought diesel and petrol was all great, and now we're X amount of years down the line, and suddenly it's, oh no, they're not safe, or it's not very good for the environment. So we've moved on to electric, which is already raising its own problems. But, you know, I imagine it'd be similar to diesel and petrol. It will probably go on for a few decades. So yeah, I think the electric vehicle is the way that everyone seems to be going, so it's a sensible route for everyone to pursue. But yeah, going back to the segment side of things, you have to be careful. The more that you try to sort of diversify, so the more you're trying to do a bit of everything, the less you've actually got to heavily invest in an area where you could make yourself really strong, such as the manufacturer or the electric vehicle side of things. Yeah,
absolutely. Darren, thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I'd echo some of that. I think there'll always be segmentation across the market. It's certainly been in place for the 9 or 10 years that I've been in it. You know, mobile repairs, fast track repairs, traditional, for want of a better expression, and perhaps some of the more high tech stuff. I don't see that changing. I think there will continue to be groups that try to specialise across all of them. I think picking up on one of the points Misha raised, that there, though, you know, the investment that's now needed to be able to operate across all of those segments, you know, is certainly increasing. And you know, as vehicles get more high tech, it seems to be that the nature of the investment becomes more high tech and more costly as well. So yeah, definitely something I think we all have to keep an eye on to make sure that, you know, not just individual body shops, but, you know, that the sector as a whole is, you know, sustainable for the future. Just clearly, you know, technology is not going to slow down in terms of the types of cars we're seeing, and you know, body shops need to better keep up and you know, have sustainable businesses that, dare say, you know, make a little bit of a profit as well. Would be nice.
That's fair enough. You can say that. That's absolutely fine here. All right, so we take the technology, take this kind of segmentation. Let's piece all the, if you like, the jigsaw together. Volumes are not where they once were. I mean, that's evident from what we're seeing. Previous webinar, we talked about kind of the peak thus far was in June. July, August kind of dipped back off a little bit. September's looking good. September looking like it may produce kind of higher volumes than previous. But how important is that next percent to you as businesses, to the industry as a whole? And it kind of links in with what perhaps we've just said regarding that segmentation. Are we still very much reliant upon that volume? And is it still all about kind of chasing that volume, if you like? And Darren, I'll come back to you on that one if I can.
It's an interesting mark. I think a lot of repairers that I talk to are still adjusting to the emergence and sort of coming out the other side of COVID. I think for a whole bunch of reasons. You know, we touched upon people earlier. We've got people coming back into the sector that want to work in a different way. I think a lot of people that were furloughed are now readjusting to the types of levels of productivity that they were perhaps used to before things slowed down for a period of time. So getting that throughput and the levels of efficiency back through the body shops, you know, I think is definitely a challenge. And you know, we still got, I think, across the sector, you know, ongoing challenges with part supply, which are in some respects probably cause as many challenges now as they were during what we would recognise as sort of the full lockdowns. And I think one of the big challenges around that was, you know, when we had the full lockdown, a lot of the part supply sort of dried up. There was a wide recognition that part supply was a big challenge. We've probably moved to a position where that supply is at the moment sort of, you know, a lot more fragmented, but causing as many challenges. So personally, I think, you know, if we were between now and the end of the year or during winter to return to the levels of frequency that we saw pre-COVID, I think we might see a bit of a problem in the market. On the one hand, the selfish side of me thinks it might drive some interesting challenges around remuneration for body shops, because we'd get that tipping point in terms of capacity and demand. But I also think we'd end up with a lot of customer cars sitting around waiting to be repaired for a lot longer than any of us want.
Yeah, absolutely. And Misha, thoughts on that one as well?
Yeah, Darren's right. There is a post-COVID, there is a lot of challenges I think we're still facing. I don't think parts has really ever not been a problem, I don't think, but it's probably definitely at its worst and potentially about to get a lot worse. I think, you know, we're coming into a different season of weather now. And if we go back into this working from home, you know, who was on the road before? It was people that probably had brand new vehicles, you know, your reps, the people that needed to go to work. And if they do have an accident, it's probably going to be all parts, and it's going to be a lot of parts because it's going to be a big impact. You know, it's difficult, but, you know, for us, the claim levels returning to what they are, not, I wouldn't say we're not important, but they're not a priority. Not for us right now anyway. We've been quite fortunate that, well, the changes that we had to make during COVID and lockdown, etc., means that we're actually in quite a comfortable position work-wise. We've got plenty of streams. I guess that's one of the perks of being a dealer repairer as well. You get sales and full warranty claims, etc. But I think the level thing, it's allowed us to maybe stop a little bit, not enough, but it's allowed everyone to take a step back and see who they want to work with. We're quite fortunate that we've got a couple of great work providers who we've got great relationships with, and they've generally taken the time to build those relationships with us, which is fantastic. But it has highlighted that there definitely is a volume issue. Some people have too much and not enough repairers, as we found out a couple of weeks ago when we suddenly received nearly 20 claims in about 2 days from someone we hadn't had any work for a year. So the problems are out there, but I think we're volume-wise, we're possibly having the opposite effect of what some people are. We've got enough, but whether that will change in the future, and I think it will only get worse, like Darren said. I think we need to think about some of these big problems we've got now before these volumes go back up. But that's a responsibility that everybody's got.
Very, very interesting, and lots of comments coming through, sort of reiterating the parts supply challenges. Some bits and pieces coming through there, which is always kind of reassuring, i.e. we're not out there on our own with all of this. So with Q4, and we kind of said it will probably be the quarter that gives us a little bit more insight into schools going back, people going back to work, i.e. normal life resuming. We hope, fingers crossed, we continue on that trajectory.
Tempted fate now, Mark.
Yeah, I know, don't stop that. So with that, and we've discussed a lot of subject matters, but what kind of one thing that's within your control do you think is going to advance your business / prepare it for the future? What is it and why at this moment in time? Misha, I'm coming back to you on that one.
I think it would be staff retention. It's definitely been highlighted more so with the attempts to poach for staff in some possibly unethical ways. They've all stayed, which is great, but it's remembering that these people, they're not contractors. We're not here to just pay them a high wage to do a job for X amount of time. We need to build a family. We'd much rather have a problem of having a vacancy than the wrong person that isn't going to help us long term. It's going to cause us problems down the line, and we're going to have issues that suddenly come out of the woodwork. So definitely staff retention and training and investment in our people.
That's great. I really like that. Darren, over to you.
Misha's pinched my one, so I'll go for another one. I think aligning sort of people and their skills to process. You know, I think one of the big challenges that we've got across the sector is the amount of admin and sort of ancillary process that now sits around just repairing cars, and you know, trying to get that aligned to people that have got the right skill sets. So that if take VDAs, for example, whose job used to be to assess method of repair and cost. Increasingly, I'm seeing our VDA's time taken up with ancillary housekeeping and taking photos and etc., which is driving down their efficiencies. So yeah, I think one big area for the future is to try and get people's process as streamlined as it possibly can be, so that with the limited skill sets we've got across the sector, we're maximising their use.
Great stuff. Goodness me, you two have answered all the questions that that I had. So goodness me, you're well versed, you two. Half an hour. I love these little sound bites. You can probably tell I quite enjoy myself on these chats, and having you two come along and share all that insight is fantastic, and really appreciate it, as I'm sure everyone does who's listening in. So just a little reminder, that we're back to physical events, we hope. 25th of November, British Motor Museum. So the ARC 360, Back to the Future. Can you see what I did there in that headline? Anyway, so yeah, looking forward to that. So that will be a great session. Got some great speakers lined up, more details to follow, but just visit the I Love Claims website for more. And of course, a huge thank you, as always, to our corporate partners, BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, Emax, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Innovation Group, Micah, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners, Aztec, the Green Parts Specialists in Darsa and Prasco. I am sure there's been many people listening in who are intrigued by the conversation we've had. Well, I certainly hope there is. If you are still in the room, leave us a note, drop us a message, let us know what you thought of that. But to me, that was 30 minutes of really, really insightful information. So a huge thank you, Darren and Misha, for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules. And
thank you for having us. Thank you for being a great co-panelist as well, Darren.
Oh, stop it, you two. Right, I'm going to call an end to this. Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate everyone's time. We'll catch up with you all soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right, guys, thank you very much. There's people still in the room, so I will be in touch with you both very shortly. I just stay in and scoop up all the messages. Absolute pleasure. Thank you, guys.
See you later. Bye, guys. Bye. Bye.
Thanks very much for joining us, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Have a great day, and we'll see you all soon.